G'day, it's Rob here again. I had a request from a viewer to have a closer look at the little linisher that I've got that I showed in one of my earlier videos, and even though there's a million linisher videos out there, probably not a lot of them are direct drive. So okay, I'll do a linisher video and join the rest of the linisher videos. So what have we got? Well, we've basically got a unit that I picked up at a garage sale, and it's only a small linisher, and it was originally meant to be driven by an electric drill. So what I got at the garage sale was this component and this component here. That's your full shaft, and it was originally driven. It had a flexible drive cable that went on the end of it, and it was driven off of an electric drill, and there was a mount that electric drill was clamped into, and it was driven off the chuck of the drill at whatever speed the drill was capable of doing. It's ancient, I mean it's really old. So anyway, I had this motor which coincidentally just happened to be the same, or pretty close colour to the linisher, so I thought, oh well, I'll rig it up. They're a very, very useful item. And I mean, so there she is. So I mean, most people will buy themselves a bench grinder, but a lot of people don't think about getting a linisher, and a linisher is really, really handy. I mean, if you're doing metal work, lathe work, you can't beat a linisher for breaking edges, and I'll show you after what I mean. But basically, we'll just have a quick run through on this thing. So, yeah, that's the little unit. The belts aren't commercially available, well, not readily available in that width. It's a 50mm belt, and I use a very fine grit on it because I only use it for edge breaking mainly, and facing, so I want it a fine grit, and also spinning at 1450 RPM. It's a fairly slow turning unit compared to some linishers. People gear them up and they go like crazy, and I wanted it to do small components on there. I could basically hold on with my fingers even, and you can with a fine grit and a slow speed belt. This one, you can do it. This one goes at about 3.8 metres a second, which sounds fast, but it's not fast in linisher terms. And as you can see, it's just got a little compound coupling here, which I happen to have. The horsepower of the motor, I couldn't tell you. It's built in 1978, and all the details have worn off the motor, but I do know it's 1450 because I put the tachometer on it and measured it. But looking at it, it's probably a half horsepower if you're lucky. It's a motor meant for woodworking because you can see it's got a sealed end on it, and it's only vented on the bottom half. So it probably came off of a saw or something. So there's the machine. Turn her on. Works beautiful. It's a very simple setup. It's just an arm that comes up to adjust the belt, and then you've got your top pulley, your idler pulley, coming off from that, and there's a bolt on the back here that you lock the vertical movement. So to adjust it, you'll put a screwdriver in there and just lever that up, and that tensions your belt. Do up the nut to lock it, and that's it. There's a screw in the end here that you can't really see with the video, but there's a screw that comes in. You can adjust the amount of cant in that top pulley by coming up against. It bears a little metal plate against the inside of this vertical slide, and that moves the arm in or out very slightly, and of course that cants your pulley either way. It works quite well. A little bit fiddly to set up, but once you've got it set up, it holds the setting, regardless of changing belts. So on the front you've got a 50mm section by 180mm section of flat steel support. It's a metal plate behind that belt, so that's firm. And on the back you've got your belt just flexible, and most linishers are the same. So you'd use this side for your flat finishing, and on the back where the belt is flexible you would be able to do round stuff on there if you wanted to say, clean up something. I mean, linishers come in all sizes. There's lots of designs. They all basically work the same way. Depends what you want to use it for and how big a job you want it for. I mean, if you were, say, linishing paint off of a motorbike petrol tank, which is what they're good for, you would use the flexible side of the linisher, this back section, and you could then, take paint off of a curved surface, and whereas you would never do it on this side, of course. This is meant for straight stuff or supported work. So yeah, you know, it's a really good little unit, and I use it all the time. I mean, as I said, the main thing is for edge breaking. And I mean, if you wanted to say, say you use a chop saw and you cut some plate, you always get that furry edge on the edge, or burr. All you do is just start up your linisher and put it on. And you break the edge as quick as that. So that sharp edge, if it's a sharp edge or it's a burred edge, it will just take that, just round it slightly. I mean, okay, people try and do that sort of work on the side of a grinding wheel, but they're so aggressive, those things, they'll take too much off, or it'll be crooked, or it'll look ugly. Whereas a linisher will do beautiful fine work, and it will do it quite easily. I'll show you around the back. Here's the back side of it, the other side of it. As you can see, this is the unsupported side of the belt. You can see it's just the basic unit, two parts that make up the linisher and the motor. They're bolted onto a little metal frame. I mean, you could mount it directly to the bench if you wanted to, but I made it movable. I direct drove it because it's simple. It takes up a lot less space. There's no belts to go out of adjustment or anything like that, and you haven't got pulleys and things you can get caught up in. I did have a metal cover over that section at one stage, but I took it off because there really was not much point. You're unlikely to get tangled up in anything there. And the reason I went vertical, because you could mount it horizontally if you want to. I went vertical because, in my opinion, vertical is the way to go, because you can work on both sides of it. If you've got a horizontal, you can't work on the unsupported side because it's facing down. Also, being vertical, the belt's coming up and going over and down. If you're working on the supported side and you've got, say, a washer or something you're facing and you're holding it with your fingers, if it does catch and take off, it won't fly up to the roof and get lost. It will shoot down on the floor, and all the muck and stuff also goes down on the floor. So, yeah, I like this mounting configuration, and it's the most practical way of doing it, in my opinion. Okay, we'll go back the other side again. Well, that's about it. There's not much more to show you on my little linisher. I did mention that the belts on this are hard to get in that width and length. 50mm in that length is available, but it's hard to get. But what I do is I get 100mm belts and stick a knife through them and just tear them down, make two belts out of one. And it seems they charge pretty much the same price for a 50mm as for a 100mm belt. You get two belts for the price of one. So something to think about it. You know, if you do have trouble sourcing belts, look for one that's wider but in the correct length, and you just cut it down. It's easy. They tear, and they'll tear parallel. Okay, one last tip. If you are going to make a linisher up, and they're not difficult to make, and there's lots of plans on the internet, and some really good plans, and yeah, it's a good project. The best way to do it, in my opinion, is keep your eyes open junk day for an old treadmill, because in treadmills they have rubber coated rollers for the treadmill belt, and they have pulleys on them. They've got everything you want, including the idle pulley up the other end, and the DC motor is generally quite okay. It's the controller that goes in those old treadmills, so you can just hook it up with a KBIC electronics drive controller and have a DC driven variable speed linisher. How good is that, eh? You never know, I might even make one up myself one day, but yeah, so there's lots of possibilities with linishers. You can make them as big or small as you want. Small one's good, I like small, but depends what you want them for. But if you've got a metal lathe and you're doing metal work, get one. They're the best things since sliced bread. Okay, see you guys, catch ya.